Welcome to Redtastic. Story 1. Hi, I'm 25 male. I work with my dad for the family business. My mom is a housewife. My younger brother, Joe 23 male, was not interested in the family business and wanted to pursue fashion. I went to a local community college as I already took up an active role in the family business right after school. Joe, on the other hand, went to pursue a fashion degree in New York. Between Joe and I was the more responsible son, while he was the more mindless and irresponsible one, whose mess my parents believed I always had to clean up. When he went to New York, he became an absolute wild child. He would quite often miss classes, hanging with the rich and bratty crowd. He never came home during the long holidays and was always partying. If my parents spoke to him about this, he would get home and not call home for weeks or pick up our calls. It was at one of the rave parties that Joe and his friends were caught having drugs. The cops arrested him. He called home, and my dad, as mad as he was, immediately asked me to go and get him out and settle things for him. I went all the way to New York, got him out of jail, and finished all the formalities. After that, as it was my first time in New York, I wanted to explore the city and asked Joe to go along with me. He immediately agreed, and I was surprised. I should have known why. He and his friends supposedly decided to help me explore New York, but kept humiliating me the entire time. Joe and his friends first started making fun of my accent and my clothes. Then every time I was surprised by something new in the city, they would chuckle saying, "Watching these small town kids marvel and basic shit is so funny." Then when Joe realized that I didn't react badly to it, he started taking things to a personal level. He told his friends how our parents nearly made me dedicate his life to serving Joe, and that I was a sort of walking ATM for Joe, as whenever he asked Dad for money, I would always send it. He said that my only ambition was to impress my dad and that he was glad that he didn't get the small town mentality from me. All his friends would laugh. It was so humiliating. I left the very next day. I came back feeling so miserable and told my parents about it. They were disappointed and upset. They tried calling Joe through the weeks and he would not pick up the call. 3 weeks ago, out of the blue, Joe called my dad. And of course, this time too, it was for a favor. But a huge one. Joe said that after he graduates, he wants to go to Paris for another degree. He wanted my dad to pay for that degree as well. My dad immediately refused, saying that he had not planned his finances to accommodate another degree, and cut the call. Literally 5 minutes later, Joe calls me. I didn't pick up the first time. Then after some insistent ringing, I picked up. He started talking to me as if he was the most concerned brother, asking me how he was doing and so on. I asked him to get to the point. He asked me to convince my dad to fund his new degree. I told him that I was not doing that, because it was high time for Joe, like the rest of us, to earn and support himself instead of relying on Dad. I usually don't speak so rudely to Joe, so he lost it. He asked me, how dare I speak to him that way? He said that I had no qualifications or prospects to tell him what he must do. I told him to F off and that I was going to make sure our dad didn't fund his degree. Thoughts? Update. Turns out that Joe didn't have any aspirations to pursue another degree. He just wanted to join his rich friends in Paris and pursue a degree to evade real-life responsibilities. But unluckily for him, his grades were so bad that no university in Paris admitted him. Good for him. You did the right thing not getting into Joe's issues, OP. Your dad already said no, and after the way he treated you in front of his friends, there's no way you would help him convince your dad to change his mind, especially since your dad had a great reason for telling him no. It's high time Joe starts acting like an adult. Stop rescuing him and picking up after him. He will grow up, and if he doesn't, well, that's his problem. Just don't get into it. Story 2. I want to preface this by saying it is about money, and it is also not about money. It is hurtful to be treated differently. And I know Reddit believes that no one owes anyone anything, but I feel like a mom does owe her kids fair treatment. I am getting married in May to the love of my life. I don't think my mom is a huge fan, but at least she isn't one of those crazy moms that try to break us up. There was one incident between them, but beyond that, the relationship has been mutually civil. I am very lucky, and my parents paid for all of my schooling, including my master's. My mom seems to think that is the norm, but I understand most parents can't do that, and I am very fortunate. My fiancé didn't have that opportunity, and she worked part-time and took out loans. She currently has $80,000 in student loans, but is working her ass off to pay them back. My dad doesn't think I should marry her while she has them, but I made it very clear that isn't up for discussion. My dad is also paying for the wedding. When my sister got married, my dad paid for the wedding, and my mom gave her a cash gift. I don't want to get into exact numbers, but it was extremely generous, and probably more than the down payment of a house. I have another sister who is getting married in September, and I found out that my mom promised her the same amount of cash. But not me. I was pissed because I believed at the time she was doing it because she dislikes my fiancé. I confronted her and let her know that if she was going to exclude my fiancé or be hurtful just because she doesn't like her, there will be consequences. My mom said it wasn't about not liking her, it was about student loans. My mom explained that both of my brother-in-laws have no debt. So the money was to start a future, but she knows if she gives me the money, it will go to the loan. Which is true, and she feels she shouldn't be responsible for someone else's kid's college education. I tried to explain that paying down the debt ASAP is in the best interest of my future. My mom said that she had thought a lot about it and asked her husband for advice. They both have kids from previous marriages and keep most money separate for estate planning purposes for their kids. So he doesn't have any vested interest, but he also hates me, so go figure that he said no. My mom said she feels bad, but I shouldn't punish her over a gift. I didn't say much at the time, but I thought long and hard and decided I don't want her at the wedding. She doesn't like my fiancé. She doesn't care about my future as much as my sister's. She is playing favorites with her kids. I texted her my decision and she never replied. My sisters now say they aren't coming to the wedding. And my father is furious and demanding I re-invite her. My fiancé actually teared up because she feels so supported. But this does hurt, but that has to be my priority. Everyone sucks here, OP. Your mom sucks for playing favorites, and you suck for uninviting your mother who has done so much for you because of this issue. You're not entitled to your mom's money. Yes, ideally she would give all her kids the same amount of cash when they get married, but she doesn't have to. You should not rescind her invitation for not getting you a cash gift of X amount. It comes off as spoiled and entitled. If it's your fiancé's student debt, that's the problem. Maybe ask her to consider gifting you some money once her debt is paid off. Now for some comments. You're the a-hole. Sounds like your mom was extremely financially supportive while you were an actual child in her care. You are now a proper grown-up and her financial obligations towards you are long over. Yet you're still acting like the brat and throwing a tantrum because she didn't get you the same gift as your siblings. My siblings and I used to do this when we were 8. Time to grow up, I'm afraid, OP. Apologize to mom, who sounds like a civil and average parent. And quit acting like a spoiled kid. Though I don't think you're the a-hole is the correct verdict here, I think the points made in this comment are spot on and a great perspective for OP to consider. OP, have you thought about offering a compromise? Agree that you will actually put the money toward a down payment on a home instead of paying off the loans. You will still get the gift, but your mother doesn't feel her gift is, in her mind, being misused. I think my personal verdict is everyone sucks here. She is surely an a-hole for not treating you equally to your siblings. But so are you for feeling so entitled to her money. I'm between you're the a-hole and everyone sucks here. Your mom doesn't have to give you money and you shouldn't cut her out of a very important day over it. It makes you look petty and small. And honestly, when it comes down to it, you will probably regret this decision. Your mom shouldn't be picking and choosing between siblings. It's not fair, you're right. It's your choice how you spend your money. Has your mom stated she would be giving you this money once the loans are paid off? That seems to be a fair compromise if you can all put your egos aside. Story 3. My mom died when I was 6. I'm 16 now. Dad married Linda after mom died. Linda has a son who is 15 and a daughter who is 13. Dad and Linda were saving college funds for me and Linda's kids through the years. My parents had already set up one, so there were some savings in it pre-marriage to Linda. About a year ago, my dad and Linda started talking about the financial elements of those accounts and how much it would really help in terms of college. They're not rich and were disappointed the accounts weren't bigger. It was also brought up that I had more because mine was started earlier than her kids' accounts. To give more context, mine was started when I was born, and Linda only started one for her kids before she married my dad. My mom came from a big family. She was one of 7 children, and my grandparents had done good for themselves. They weren't rich, lol, but they had a home that was mortgage-free and they both continued to hold jobs. Because I lost my mom, they decided to downsize their home and set up an account for me that would help me through life. My aunts and uncles even contributed small amounts. They all have kids, so couldn't do as much. But it's more than any of my cousins have, and it's more than Linda's kids. Learning about the account made my dad and Linda unhappy. Linda asked that they allow her and my dad access so they could do what they felt was right. My grandparents said no. Dad asked them why they had done what they had and why it wasn't discussed with him. They told him it would be given to me when I turned 18 and not a moment sooner, and that they wanted the money to be for me, to do whatever I liked with it, and that as my mom's parents, they did what they felt my mom would want. The whole thing was such a big deal to my dad and Linda that I told them to take back the money they saved for me, but leave what was there before they got married. Dad asked if I would share some of the money from my grandparents with Linda's kids. I said no. I also told him that money saved by him and mom should still be mine, because my mom was not saving for kids he would raise with someone else. Linda and my dad believe I am too involved and too opinionated, and I'm selfish for not being more giving with Linda's kids. Dad told me he's disappointed and it's an adult matter that I should stay out of it. I think seeing as I was asked to share, I have a right to give input. Am I the a-hole? Now for some comments. Not the a-hole. Your grandparents said no, and until you are 18, nothing else matters. Dad and Linda are being selfish to pressure you into sharing money. If they were that concerned about you being involved in the adult conversation about it, they should have been adults and shut it down without ever asking for you to share. Not the a-hole. If the dad was asking for access, it means he was going to take out some of it without ever telling them or you. I would keep a detailed record of what is in your accounts once you start opening things, especially with your dad or Linda as a guardian, because they could very well try to take anything you may have in the future, because they'll have access to your minor account. So, Linda couldn't and didn't save as much for her kids as your dad and mom did, and somehow that's your responsibility to fix. And even when you offered to give up some of the money your dad and Linda set aside for you, it wasn't enough. They need what your mom's parents set aside for you as well. Just wow, not the a-hole. Your dad should protect your interests too, not just those of his younger kids. And Linda shouldn't try to take other people's money for her kids' benefits.